All right, we are recording. Um, Thanks for coming. This is our Purdue themed experience design and technology speaker series. And My name is Josh Polk. I am the site director in Indianapolis for this program. And we're here with Bill Kivi, and Christian Rogers is also a dean in Indianapolis. And we're both faculty as well for our program. I want to just let you know if we've sent this, you know, advertised this wide and far, so you may not be familiar with our program. Um, PurdueThemedEntertainment.com has some information about what we offer, including an undergrad degree in themed entertainment. We have a minor if you are in at Purdue learning something else. And we also have an online non-credit certificate program where you can take that online from pretty much anywhere around the world. So check out our information if you are interested in any of this, and be sure to get in touch if you have any questions. I also just want to tell you also next week we have a great speaker option. Christina Hall will be on with us, and she just finished doing work for James Cameron's Avatar movies, doing concept design for that, those movies have turned out awesome. And Christina very recently has moved over to Disney Imagineering and is doing work with them. So you'll definitely want to catch that next week. But this week we have Bill, creative director at Falcon's Creative Group, and he has done some awesome work in the past for Sally Dark Rides. He's got Sesame Street Street Mission, Justice League Battle for Metropolis. He's done some NFTs and other crazy 3D awesome stuff for Disney. We got to see him on his campus down there a while back, and we're super happy to have him here. He's also on our advisory board, so helps us figure out what we need to teach and get everything right. So, Bill, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I wasn't sure about, I've got a whole list of questions, and I want to open the
Awesome.
floor up later too for our attendees to ask questions. But I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to show or like kind of go through. I can certainly open that up. Let me stop my own screen share here. I'll try to anyways. Did you have anything, or do you just want to talk
I
about
don't.
what you do?
Yeah, no, we can just talk and answer some questions. I wish I could share what's happening right now, but it's mid-production, and yeah.
Why not, Bill? Why can't you?
I might lose my job, might get
That's the
sued.
that is the nature of the industry, everybody.
Yeah, and we got some really cool stuff happening, but yeah, it is what it is.
All right, well, why don't we just start with maybe tell us a little bit about your, I'm curious about your education background and kind of how you ended up in this field, and then go
Sure.
into like what's your expertise? Like what have you been doing, and are you still doing that stuff, or you're getting into new stuff?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So, education, well, I started college originally at IU Purdue University in Fort Wayne, back when they called it that. And I was in the art program, um, and I loved it. It was really a fine arts program. It's kind of before the days of 3D and all that, and Photoshop, which came later. So I was there doing traditional art and also taking other classes. Took business, took a lot of human resource management classes because I was also kind of business minded as well. And I went down to IU Bloomington as well for a time with the intent of going back into the fine art program because it was larger. But life happened and I didn't end up there. So I finished up my degree up in Fort Wayne at IPFW, and then from there was kind of rudderless for a little while, honestly. I know I wanted to do animation work, wasn't really clear on how to get there or even where to learn it. So I worked in telecom and IT. And so I worked for Verizon Data Services for a number of years, would draw all night long, would make posters for the SPCA, stuff like that. And then I took classes. So I'd heard that IPFW there in Fort Wayne had started having actual computer art classes, and so I discovered that Verizon would pay for them because they said computer. And so I took, I don't know, 6, 7 classes over there, including classes on 3D Max and that kind of thing. So that was my second stint in school. I ended up pivoting from, the dot-com crash happened in 2000, if anybody remembers that. So I pivoted into doing insurance work as a claims adjuster. I hated it with all of my being. I did that for a number of years and then decided I've had enough of this. I need to pursue my passions. And I went to SCAD, so Savannah College of Art and Design. And at SCAD, that's where I got my MFA in animation with a focus on particularly 3D animation. While there, I don't know, things felt like there was also other opportunities, such as theme entertainment. So I graduated, and then I became a professor, and so I taught animation for the Art Institute of Jacksonville. I basically taught most of the portfolio of classes, unless it was 2D. So all the 3D classes I taught, and then I later became the academic director. So I ran their animation program, their film program, and their photography. That's when I became friends with the wonderful folks over at Sally Dark Rides. And so became friends with them. I had a real keen interest. I'm a huge theme park nerd, love to go to the parks, been going my whole life. And so made friends with those guys. And when the school announced they were going to close, reached out to my friends at Sally, or they also reached out to me. And I joined Sally Dark Rides. And there I was a designer, did a lot of art direction, and then later also did the interactive media direction on behalf of Sally, working with the different vendor studios, so which was a lot of fun. Did a lot of on-site art direction. Some of the attractions you named with the Sesame Street Mission, 4 of the different Justice League rides, and plus Reese's Cup Fusion up at Hershey Park. So I kind of went through a couple of your questions. Don't remember what the other question was that was tied to that.
Well, why don't we dive into your working on these dark rides?
Yeah,
What was your role? Like, what did you kind of mentioned art direction and being on site, but
yeah,
using those 3D skills, I've seen some of your portfolio work.
yeah. So I was, basically what most people call a show set designer. So it's really kind of doing what traditionally a Universal or Disney would call show set, as well as attraction design, kind of mixed together. And so let's say the Hall of Justice, for example, for the Justice League rides that you see at the Six Flag parks. So the one in particular would be the one in California, Magic Mountain. There was an empty box. We knew that was going to be the Hall of Justice. There was no reference art to really be found. Sadly, there just isn't much out there of what it really looks like. And so it was my task to design the look. Here's what this space is going to look like. And here's where, the media is going to be, as far as like we had a large screen that was part of the pre-show. And it was also, how am I going to integrate these speakers into this surround that goes around the screen? And how am I going to hide the projector? How even down to like, how are we going to light this space? So doing some preliminary, light layouts and light studies for that space. So I would basically start from the empty box, get some direction, of course, from the creative director as far as what the objectives were, kind of what we were going to have in the space, oftentimes the sort of the initial layout, and then I'd fill it. So I'd model everything in 3D. I would, the stuff I did, you go through phases. So you do a rough in, a block out, or a white model, and then progressively add more and more detail to it. And then in that case, that shape changed size probably 6 times. And so it was constantly kind of revisiting it, redesigning it, and eventually it stuck. And we got a design that was approved by both Six Flags as well as DC and Warner Brothers, who were the IP holders. So that was a lot of fun. So I designed in that attraction a number of different spaces that were unique for that Justice League ride from the other ones. So again, starting off with basically a blank sheet of paper and figure out what it was going to look like.
So do you jump straight into 3D? Are you sketching things first? You mentioned white model, which actually I was just talking to my class about this about a half an hour ago. Are you building a physical thing out to show clients or for your own use? Like, what are the different kind of phases of media that you're working with?
Sure. Ideally, you start off with just some rough doodles, some sketches, kind of figure out some of the elements in the space. When what I meant by white model would be more of in a 3D sense, where you're just massing. So you've got massing models. Traditionally, they would do it with foam board and to kind of do white models to mass out spaces. We didn't do that, but I would do it in 3D. I was very fast and comfortable working in 3D, so I could quickly do a block out of a space and kind of get, spatially, does this feel good before diving into detail.
So during the process of, you got this blank space, this empty room,
Mhm.
where does the story go into it? Do you have that completely figured out at first and what the theme is and kind of the core concept that is going to be behind it? Or talk about how that integrates. Is that a different team? Is it all shared amongst that conversation? How does Sally integrate that?
Well, I'm not there anymore, so I can't speak to how they
Yeah,
do
or
it
how they used to.
now.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. Well, I was there, so as far as like the story, that direction would really come from the creative director. And there's as a good show set person or attraction designer, you kind of have to work on your interviewing skills. And by what that I mean by that is going and asking a lot of questions. And so, in particular, the Justice League, the one at Magic Mountain, it was, because there isn't a lot of reference to use, like what is the architectural language of this space? And going to the, creative director and saying, hey, all right, so we've got this blank canvas. I know we need to have a screen. It's going to be, we think it's going to be here. We know it's going to have a surround. We want to have these other elements in here. But what's the architectural look? Like what era are we trying to hit? And then you get that feedback from your creative director. And then what I like to do when I do design is I like to mock something up quickly, whether that's a sketch, like a doodle, or it's a quick, block out, and then share it back, and to get that, I'd rather get feedback when it's easy than do a whole lot of waste a bunch of time on design and then find out you're going in completely the wrong direction. And so, asking a lot of good questions as well as checking in, I think are paramount if you want to be a good designer. Ultimately, the creative director is kind of driving the vision, and they have their ideas on what something needs to be, but they give, you get freedom working within the guardrails that the creative director sets up for you, which is a lot of fun.
So, I want to mention if anybody has questions as we go along, we don't necessarily have to wait till the very end. I got a question from Megan who says she was a ride operator for Reese's Cup Fusion. So
Oh,
that's pretty
sweet.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
So the question is, what was the process for that, like building that ride and in place of the Extreme Cup Challenge? Did Hershey have specifications about how much they wanted to change or how they wanted the new story incorporated? How did
Mhm.
that influence the process and design?
So I can only speak for what I know of it. I wasn't involved in every aspect of it.
Yeah.
But that particular project, that was also while I was at Sally, which, like I said, I'm not there. I haven't been there for a number of years. But when I was with them, that design had actually been done by Louis Alfieri's company called Raven Sun. And so their team had actually done the design. They'd worked with Hershey for, gosh, quite a while. The design of what that attraction was going to be and the reimagining of it. And then it got to a point where Hershey then decided, we had done the original ride there, the one that it was replacing. And we had a really great relationship with Hershey as well. And so they brought the project over and asked us to execute on the design that Lewis and his team had put together. And so, and we had some collaboration with Lewis and his team, certainly a lot of collaboration with the park, and they were great. So, as was Lewis's team. So, a lot of really great creative people came together and, realized that attraction. So, we had to take basically Raven Sun's design and figure out, how to fit it in the space, how to actually move it into production. And so we handled all the production, which would be all the building of the sets, the wall treatments. Rich at Sally had redone the layout of the track, made some changes to the track. And then I came into it. I was working on doing a lot of the direction on the media. And then I was asked to come in. It was being installed. It was sort of towards the, past midway, but there was still quite a bit left to do. Asked to go over and do on-site art direction. And so I was there on site working with the media team, working with some lighting, working with sort of the timing of the attraction itself to make sure that it actually would work with the throughput we needed, as well as all the triggers, and make sure all the audio and all that worked, and finished up the install, which was frankly a lot of fun. Had a lot of good challenges.
That's great. Let's move into a different part of your career progression,
Sure.
and I'm curious about IP. And we all know the people that hold their IP tightly and closest is Disney, and so you got to spend some time building some pretty uh, you weren't in the theme entertainment aspect of it as much. You were doing some pretty unique products like NFTs and some different things.
Sure.
Talk about what it's like to work for Disney and their control of, I think you worked with their 3D characters and things like that.
Yeah.
But also you could just talk about, some of the unique projects you had there.
Sure, sure. Yeah, Disney was a great experience. I worked, so as part of the Disney experience is like the big company. Then below it was consumer products. And then below that was publishing. And part of the time we were under games, part of the time we were under publishing. We had a team that changed names a few times. It went from immersive experience to uh, digital experiences. And when I was leaving, we were calling it digital innovations. So I think it had another name too. So it constantly was evolving as they were moving us around. So I worked with every single Disney brand while I was there. So I worked closely with the teams at Lucas, in particular on Star Wars type of products. Worked with Pixar, worked with Walt Disney Animation Studio, worked with Fox. So we had some stuff we did with Alien and Predator. Worked with Lightstorm on, you mentioned Avatar earlier. Worked with those filmmakers. The beauty of kind of where we were at is worked directly with oftentimes, award-winning filmmakers and animators and like people that are deep into these different brands. The interesting thing is, there's Disney as they've grown over the years. They've collected these or merged with these other companies that they brought in, but they all really function differently.
Mhm.
And so that was one of the things to learn was, your communication and the flow of getting approvals and that kind of thing really varied with each of those entities, as well as there's certain characters who also have more layers. Like I did a lot of stuff. I think I think he did art and animation direction on like 5 different Mickey NFTs. And so, Mickey obviously is very guarded, very important, to the Disney brand. He's such an iconic character that, Mickey goes through more levels of review and approval than maybe another character would. So there's different sensitivities depending on which one you're, working with. So you mentioned NFTs. So yeah, I worked on a lot of the different NFTs. The only ones that I didn't touch for Disney were Marvel, because those were actually handled from the Marvel studio publishing up in New York at the time. Which now that's all integrated into one team. But
Now, are people still buying NFTs? I'm not even sure if that pretty much history now, or
good question. Uh, you know, um, I really don't know. I wasn't an NFT person. Um, there was just, it. We were doing all kinds of other like R&D and like other types of like cool storytelling with digital and spatial stuff, and then suddenly NFTs became really huge like overnight, and suddenly that became a lot of our focus because it was doing so great. Um, so when they came on, I was like, I don't, what, explain to me what an NFT is. And they're like, oh, it's this. And it's like, okay, great. And like, well, all I care about is making sure that these things look great, represent the different brands and make the animations really fun. So, like I had the pleasure of being able to write, you know, this character is going to do this, right? So, so I'd figure out, study a lot of reference, get reference from the studio, and then figure out like what's going to happen for this little 10-second clip, and then what are these poses going to be for these other ones? And so I just focused on that, not so much the business piece of it.
yeah.
We had people on the team for that piece, and they followed that closely, but I didn't really worry about that too much.
Yeah, if people don't even know what we're talking about, I mean, these are kind of like digital baseball cards in a way. People trade them, collect them, buy them, sell them, whatever. It's kind of a strange phenomenon, but um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and some of them are worth a lot of money, and then people have also lost a lot of money on certain NFTs. So,
yeah.
it's just I don't know. It was interesting. It was fun. We got to do a lot of them. We had a small little team, and we cranked through a lot of different projects. Our team also did fun collaborations with like Amazon. I didn't personally get involved in it, but a lot of the stories, they would be Disney stories that would go through like the Amazon like Echo and that kind of thing, as well as our team, the new the Amazon. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it went into the Disney hotels and be like the Hey Mickey. So part of our team worked on that. There's really diverse group of people. We did collaborations with Google. We did collaborations with Apple. We did collaborations with Xerox. Like you name it, where you could try to fit in some kind of storytelling using Disney, IP. So the intellectual property, whether that's Star Wars or Pixar, or Walt Disney Animation Studios, trying to figure out like how can we elevate some kind of cool experience using the brand. And so we did a lot of that. Did a lot of conceptual R&D. Worked with startups too, which was really fun. So you got to see some. Can't tell you about it, but got to see some technology that really hasn't been out yet, and
Mm.
try to figure out like how can we take Disney, stories and ideas and marry it to this product and give some brand new experience that nobody's ever done before. So I really loved that aspect of that particular position. I got to work with a lot of really smart people, a lot of really great creative people, and just think outside of the box. Like literally like this has never been done before, and how are we going to do it? And how can we make something that was unique? So it was fun.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I like that we are able to consider the breadth of Disney, and goes beyond just the Magic Kingdom and things like that. So, some
Yeah,
of these questions I'll try to work in where I can. I've gotten a
sure.
few. One is on the IP. When a client brings an IP or world with either clear or unclear rules, how do you establish narrative boundaries without limiting creativity too much?
Okay, well, there are always rules. Some of them you don't know until they tell you. So the gosh, how do I go into that? But just try to dance around it. So um, one of the things that you can run into with IP is maybe something historical. So let's say it's an IP that's been around for 30, 40 years. And so maybe 40 years ago, a character looked a certain way or behaved a certain way, would do, say certain things. And what you will run into is when you're going, okay, I'm going to the source. I can watch this media on this platform over here. And so everybody knows that this character looks this way. Everybody knows this character acts this way or says these kind of things. But then when you go to do your own current time storytelling, what you can sometimes discover is that today's norms and ideals and sensitivities, or just honestly, there's been reflection over maybe some things we shouldn't have done 40 years ago. We know it exists, but we're not going to do that now. And sometimes what the beauty of it is, honestly, is all those relationships with the IP holder, they're partnerships. So it's not like you take an idea to them and they're gonna be mad or upset. They're just gonna say, "Yeah, we totally understand what you were thinking. Totally get it. This has happened 100 times. We can't really do it, and this is why." But what you can do is something more like this, right? And so they just guide and help you get to where you need to be with that particular IP and whatever sensitivities it might have. Not all of them have that, but it's pretty common. And so even like a character, like an animated character, even like a particular hand gesture, which means nothing to many people, may have a cultural sensibility in another country.
Hmm.
And so, and if you're working on a global project where it'll be distributed in many places, you have to change that, even though it's what you would call canon. It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
So you learn a lot of those rules along the way. I know like certain characters, like at Disney, for example, like certain animated characters, there's oftentimes like a specialist who knows that character really well. So oftentimes they'll point you, you should talk to this person because they know everything about this character. And you're like, great. And then you can go and, have a quick meeting with them and then they give you just tons and tons of awesome information.
Tell us a little bit what you can about what types of things are you doing now.
Sure. So I am right now working on a massive theme park. It's quite large. It's going to be really cool. Um, it's it's public, um, but for whatever reason, they don't want us to talk about where it's at. Well, I can say where it's at. It's in Saudi Arabia. But for whatever reason, they don't want me to say the name of the park. But they could
Google it.
easily Google it. So it's a really cool theme park. I am overseeing the creative direction of a land, which includes a handful of attractions of different types, as well as some restaurants and some retail units. Um, it's been a really great challenge. Came onto this project about a year and 3 months ago. So I moved here out to Orlando. I was in LA where I had, recently left Disney. Kind of made a really quick transition from Disney right over to here. I think I had maybe 3 weeks in between the two, some of that a month. which was great. So came over here and quickly had to learn this IP that I was vaguely familiar with, but I didn't really know it, not to the level I know now. At this point, I've watched 500 episodes of it across two different. Actually, I watched one whole series and then 500 episodes into another series and about four movies, just to kind of ingratiate myself into understanding the characters, the world, and sort of the stories and who likes who hates who fights who, whatever. So learned a lot. The attractions, they needed a little. They were on a good path, but they needed some more attention, some more love. And so I've had a lot of fun working with the team to really mold them into what I think will be world class experiences. So I'm excited to see them, down the line become real and people go visit. And of course, I want to go visit the park and ride these and see these experiences for myself. The whole park looks really beautiful, so it should be neat.
So are you providing creative direction on very broad aspects of how different parts of the land connect to each other, or do you get into very specific things, or just kind of a little bit of everything?
It's everything actually. There was already what you call a master plan for the park, and so it was well under in hand when I came on. The attractions were all sort of picked. It was going to be this was going to be this type of attraction. This attraction was going to be over here, and so on. And so what my focus has been on mostly is on the attractions themselves, going in, diving into the story, going into the look, going into the experience itself. This guest is going to be here, this is going to happen, and then that's going to then propel this next moment, this is going to happen, and so on. And you're really building the experience from the second you walk into the queue until you leave the exit. So deep, deep, deep into the entire story as well as the visual, and thinking through also the technical how this is going to work. We have a technical team, but I work closely with them. I work closely with the attractions team, which is attraction designers. I work closely with my show set designers. Work closely with our narrative team, developing the story and the script, making sure that it's going to be a solid, like the goal is anybody could come into an attraction, experience it, have a good time, whether it's funny, whether it's thrilling, whether it's got some kind of scare. Like everybody should be able to understand what that experience is. And, having good storytelling, good experiential moments gives them that experience, right? So that when they get out, they're not going, what the heck was that? What did I just spend 3.5 minutes doing? Um, so hopefully they love it.
So do you get a chance to use your 3D skills anymore? It sounds like you've got a lot of things going on. Do you get your hands dirty still, or
I try to.
yeah?
Recently I had a roller coaster, model in front of me and kind of scrubbing through, trying to understand this particular layout and understand where, some show set could be, where possibly media would be better placed, So, I'm a 3D guy. A lot of it's a lot of it's just helping other people with understanding the spatial and the design.
Hmm.
I wish I had more bandwidth to get deeper into it, but frankly, juggling, a number of different attractions plus the retail plus the food and beverage locations. I've got a team and they're great, but still I've got to, check in with people. We have a lot of meetings, so
Well,
not as much as I would like to.
I'm gonna try to integrate a student question into this question here.
Sure.
And so you're kind of in this creative direction job that you have, I think is where a lot of students want to be. Like they want to design lands and parks and have a say on lots of different things. And
Sure.
obviously, you had a long path to get to that point. Could you talk about that and how the question from the student was, how does your guest experience and education background has impacted that on your journey? And there was another part of the question too about, if you're being a fan too much maybe is a hindrance as well. That's kind of separate, but like how do you get to that creative director position and maybe talk through that a little bit.
So yeah, I mean that's a great question, and it does come up often. I will have to say that there isn't one really direct route. We've got like at our company, we've probably got 7 different creative directors, and I'd say they're all pretty unique from one to the other. And ideally, you really want a unique mix of people. Some companies lean on writing skills more so than like drawing skills for creative directors. And then other companies may actually want people with storytelling ability. Yes, but you don't necessarily have to be a writer, but you understand, story. But you also have skills in whether they're traditional drawing skills or their 3D modeling skills. But some companies want you to understand design and how to do design. I find for myself that having the design background is ideal for me because then I can work with other designers and I can communicate with them. I can do a quick draw over what they've done and I can actually teach them good design and so that they grow as an artist themselves. Whereas and maybe I'm wrong, but if, I feel like if I didn't have that design experience behind me, it'd be harder to communicate. Um, you know, and I've gotten notes like that from like occasionally there will be an IP holder that's just like, we don't like this. Like, okay, but what do you not like about it? We just don't like it. It doesn't feel this. Okay, so what would make it feel more that? I don't know. Do something different. It's not usable. It's just kind of thrown away notes. And so when because of my design experience, I can give people like real direction. This is what I'm looking for. Do this. Change the shape here, space out this, and here's why. And so they can learn. So, but that being said, there's a lot of people that do come from theater backgrounds. So, in particular, theater show set design. So that design side. There are people that come from, again, writing. There are a number of people, that have come from media that have made the jump. Historically, if you look at, the beginnings of Disney, for example, they were animators and they came over and they designed Disneyland. If you look at the historical history of Universal, a lot of those people were filmmakers who understood filmmaking and set design. So there's a lot of crossover, and those skills that you learn are very valid in theme entertainment. I feel like theme entertainment is really taking all those different disciplines and cramming them all together. And so to really be good at this, you need to you think like an engineer, pay attention to how what a lighter would do, uh, understand what a filmmaker who's like a DP, the composition, what's my shot, what am I looking at, right? It's taking all those different skills and kind of putting on the right hat or the right lens for whatever moment you got. But there isn't, like I said, there isn't one direct path. I think the best place is starting somewhere. Show set design is a great place to start. Some people will start off, you can start off with an internship, which is always ideal. You can start even if you don't have, let's say you don't have the design chops yet, or don't know some certain software, you can start as a coordinator and then you get in the company and work on your skills. And then the beauty of being in a studio environment, Like we've got 200 people, 250 people in our office. Well, you can go over to somebody's desk and say, hey, can you look at this? I just spent some of my free time this weekend designing this space. What do you think, right? Or I'm trying to learn this software. Do you have a little time to kind of show me some things? And I find that honestly, I've found in my entire career, my creative career, people are very generous. They're very generous with their time. They're very generous with their advice. Um, I feel, in particular, theme entertainment is some of the nicest people I've ever had the pleasure of working with and getting to know. So a lot of people will help. So I don't know if that
No, that's
question.
really great advice. I'm gonna let Chris ask a question in a second here, and then give some a couple more a chance for students. Students, if you have any more, throw them in the Q&A. I just want to do one quick follow up though. When you got this creative position, um, creative direction position, what would you say was like your best selling point? Like, what do you think? Was it your vast design experience or the way you communicated, or just what was the part that you think connected with them the most?
Um, I I think it was honestly, I think it was a mixture of having a lot of experience with dark rides for one, but in particular, all of my media, so my animation experience and knowledge, um, it translates really well. And then our company, we have our own media team, and so somebody like myself, I speak the same language as both sides of this business. I've done media and I've done the design of, dark rides and those kind of things. And so it puts me potentially in a unique position to help the company bridge a gap. Um, and
Hmm.
so I think that was part of their appeal.
Excellent. Chris has a question for you.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. So Bill, like you've obviously had a long-standing career, and it's fascinating. I mean, it's obviously I've known you for a long time, and it's been fun to watch your career move and ebb and flow and adjust. And you've been
Sure.
such a big supporter of our program, and we're appreciative of that. But a part of that is the fact that you work for these different companies. We obviously have a lot of misconceptions at times where students, when they think about the themed entertainment and attractions industry, they often think about one or two companies.
Sure.
They also often think about one or two locations. Really,
Yep.
that's it. And so I think it would be helpful if you could kind of give us a quick overview of like, okay, what actually is Sally Dark Ride? What is Falcons? Like, what are their roles in the industry?
Sure.
How is that different? I think that would be helpful to open up students' eyes a little bit to
Sure.
understand who are these other companies and how do they interface with their clients.
Right. Well, I, I don't, I can't really speak for Sally other than my own experience there. I don't, I'm not certainly not a representative for them or even there anymore. But, their when I was there, their focus was on in particular, interactive dark rides, and they would be what you would call a turnkey provider, meaning that a park could come to them and say, "Hey, we want either we have a license for this particular IP, and we're not really using it right now, or we have aspirations to use it, and we would love you to design, an attraction around this IP. And roughly, here's how big the space is for it, and here's how much money we kind of have to work with." And then they would go through and say, "All right, great, let's design you an amazing ride." And they would make them a really great ride, and I'm really proud to have been part of their team when I was there. We did a lot of really great stuff. So they didn't like build the building, but they would do everything else. And so that being the turnkey part, so they would go through the entire design, all the production, installation, and then literally train the write ops. Here's your attraction. Here's how it works. Here's what you do. And then they would support the attraction after that. So that's in a nutshell I think they've diversified a little bit to do even more since I left, which is great. I still have a lot of friends over there, so it's been great keeping up as much as I can. And the difference with the Falcons, we are, I would say, more on the design heavy piece of it, but we're also extremely diversified. So the group I work for is Falcons Creative Group, which in particular, we design theme parks, we design attractions, we could design aquariums, we could design water parks, you name it. Even smaller venues like LBEs or FECs. We can handle like all of the design. The the we don't really get into the turnkey, at least they haven't done that I'm aware of. So, but we also have one of our sides of our companies is the Falcons Attractions, which was formerly known as Oceaneering. So that was purchased a little over a year ago, I believe. And so that team, though, is very much about delivery. So delivering ride systems. So ride systems that you would be familiar with would be things such as Kong over at Universal Islands of Adventure, Spider-Man, Universal Islands of Adventure, Transformers, Universal. Like they've done a lot of really great, they do trackless as well as track ride systems. So that side of the company does design, engineering, build, install, and they collaborate with people like Sally and other people. So it could be an internal project or it could be an external project. So that's that side of the business. And then we have our Falcons Beyond team, which let me make sure I don't misspeak, but it's part of I believe that our media team is underneath that. So we have a digital team, and so they have done production work for television. They have done media for our own attractions. They have done media for games. So we have a very robust team of really talented 3D artists and real-time engine people, full-on coders. Like that. We have a whole huge team for that. And then we also have our place, such as, so we did the part of the Falcons Beyond, Kathmandu, which is in Mallorca, which is a theme park, which we designed, built, installed, and still run. So it's a good-sized company, do a lot of different things.
Chris, do you
And
have
and
anything
and
else?
ever what was that, Josh?
I said, did you have anything else to follow?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and I was just going to say, in ever expanding, obviously you've recently purchased Oceaneering not that long ago,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, phenomenal. I'll turn it back over. We've got a couple of student questions. I want to make sure
Sure.
those get in.
Great.
Yeah, Nathan asked if you can give an example, as much as you can share, of a project that didn't work out so well
Hmm.
and how you might have planned it, and what did you learn through that process?
Oh gosh. Uh, well, I can't really get into any specifics, but what I will say is you can't fall in love with your work or your projects. I have personally been involved in, I don't know, probably more than a dozen attractions that may never see the light of day. Some of them very, very far into design, all the way up to basically you're starting to build things. And then other ones that, you just did some, light concepting. And you're like, oh, this is going to be really fun. This is really great. And then they just, don't happen for one reason or another. It's really common. And the reasons of why can be a lot of different things. Oftentimes, you may be competing with two or three other companies that are all trying to get that project. And so maybe they liked another idea better. And you oftentimes don't even get feedback. You're just like, well, we went in a different direction. Um, Other times they may decide we don't have the budget anymore, or we've decided to go a different way as an organization, and we're gonna, let's say it was a dark ride, for example. This is just hypothetical, but we decided we're not going to do a dark ride right now. What we really feel like the audience or our customers want is another coaster, and so they decide to do that, right? Like there's so many different reasons why something may not happen. I oftentimes not because there's a failure. It's just circumstantial. Um, I don't know that I don't know that any project I would say was a failure. They just didn't happen for some reason or another, and you just kind of go, well, that stinks, and then you move on to the next one. After a while, you've done so many projects, it's all about doing the work. The work is what's fun. The work is what's challenging. It isn't it isn't specifically the one attraction or the one job. It's just what you do, right? You get up in the morning, you go to the office, do a bunch of cool stuff,
Mhm.
finish the day, go home, relax, get up tomorrow, do some more cool stuff.
It's great. So I love your story, and I think a lot of our certificate students might relate to where, you were kind of started off in a career, you didn't care for it too much, and you wanted to get out and get into this and do this. So, question from Caitlin is how have you made sure you're prepared for opportunities that arise? What would your advice be to a current engineering professional trying to get into the industry?
Okay, so well, opportunity can show up anytime. So I have been surprised often with opportunity that's literally fallen in my lap, and you're just like, oh, sure. So I know that's not very helpful, but what I will say, always, I don't know. I typically, I can't say I would say yes to every opportunity, but most opportunities I say yes to. And to be prepared, it's just being open to taking a risk, taking a new chance, growing past what you feel comfortable in. I think I think being uncomfortable is a good thing, because then now you're being challenged, right? So I think as far as like if you're looking at, like, for example, you mentioned engineering, there are so many different engineering firms, and some of them, like this may not be, theme entertainment may not be the thing that they do all of their work around. It certainly wasn't the case for Oceaneering as a company. Oceaneering is a massive company. They had an entertainment division, and that entertainment division is what came over to Falcons when we purchased them. But Oceaneering as a whole still exists, and it's a massive company. So there are a number of engineering companies that may have small divisions that do really cool R&D work. They may do like really great collaborations with, maybe your Universal or your Disney or other parks. And so I would cast your net out very broadly when you're looking for opportunity. And I would, LinkedIn is your friend. Use LinkedIn, see, and also read, read. So like if you're going into, so like for example, let's say, and I can't point you to an article, but let's say there's an article talking about the development of Epic Universe, for example. And then in that article, they mention an engineering firm that had done something. Well, research that engineering firm. Go to the LinkedIn, put in the company name, see who's there, and then reach out to some people there and ask them to have a conversation. Just saying, hey, I'm a college student. I'm at Purdue University. I'm studying engineering, and I would love to hear about what you guys do. You know,
Yeah.
and and most people are, like I said before, most people are pretty generous, and they will give you 15, 20 minutes. Ask them like, hey, can we do a virtual coffee? I really would love to hear more about your company. I saw this article, sounded really cool. I'd like to know more.
That's great.
And,
Uh,
and yeah,
So I have one more. I think we have time for one more question, and I got one from Chris, and I'll add
sure.
on to it a little bit too. So, we've actually invited animation people to
Great.
this session as well. And so Chris asked, when you are working at the animation studio, what kind of skills do you have? I'd add on to that, like what kind of software are you
Mhm.
in? And then maybe extend that to the industry. Like if someone's just an animator and maybe isn't familiar with themed entertainment, is this a place where they might want to look into that to apply their skills
Oh
once
yeah,
they graduate? Yeah.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
FYI, this is a student, Chris. I just want to give kudos to the student.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, absolutely. So we do have an animation team. So our studio is using Maya. I would say I would recommend actually to even theme entertainment students. Um, so I'll first start with the animation, but so Maya is still the go-to platform. However, more and more, especially boutique studios that are smaller, are starting to really lean on Blender because it's free, it's open source, and small studio may not want to spend $3,000 or whatnot for a Maya license for 5 people. Um, so they've been a lot of studios have been transitioning to Blender, and I think you're going to see more of that. You may even see it on the bigger studios. Um, so it's it's complicated. So, but knowing Maya, it would be solid regardless of where you want to go. But being able to flex and learn Blender would be smart. Um, if you're going in the direction these days in theme entertainment, as far as like show set modeling and attraction design, where you may do some modeling as well, uh, I would recommend Blender, or excuse me, scratch that, Rhino. So Rhino has been the go-to software. Um, that's the skills that we're looking for. I know it's the same story over, from what I understand, at some other places. And so the beauty of the reason Rhino is that kind of preferred is because you can pipeline the Rhino model into Revit, and Revit is being used to do BIM, BIM.
Hmm.
And that is really the industry's really focused on making sure everything works in BIM. And Rhino cleanly goes into Revit. Whereas a 3ds Max file, a Blender file, or a Maya file will not. What will happen when you import those meshes is you'll just see a black sort of blob of wireframe. And so it's not clean. It doesn't read, and it doesn't look good. And so been way more Rhino than it used to be.
And what
So
about the 3D real time, your Unreal, and you're
oh
seeing
yeah,
that in your industry as well?
oh yeah, yeah. I would, whether I was doing animation, visual effects, or if I want to be a designer, I would learn Unreal. It's a really great tool. There's a lot of, I've been using Unreal for, gosh, what year is this? 7, 8 years, something like that. And it's a beautiful tool. It's going to get more and more. It's becoming more robust. They've got animation tools in it now, and they've been slowly making those better over the last couple of years. It's also really good for doing architectural visualization. A lot of architectural programs will plug right into it these days, so you can do quick, real-time walkthroughs, fly-throughs, with beautiful lighting and effects as well. So like I would highly recommend Unreal just as another tool. It may not be the reason you get hired, but having it may put you a step above somebody else you're on the same page with. And I know we've looked at some show set people recently, and people that know Unreal, it's just a bonus. If you know ZBrush, also a great bonus.
Hmm.
Because the beauty with ZBrush is you could do the organic models that instead of having two people to do one task, I could have one person do one task. So it's far more efficient. So I would highly recommend learning some ZBrush.
Awesome. Want to be respectful of your time. I know for a fact that you will answer question for hours because the last time we had you, I think our student did ask you questions for a couple hours. Is there anything else that, where students can find you or anything you want to share, anything like that?
Sure, sure. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I try to be conscious of answering, responses and that. Sometimes I'm a little slow, but in general, happy to connect and happy to answer any questions. And oftentimes have historically pointed people towards, do you know this company? And they're like, no, never heard of it. Great. You should look them up and send them a note and try to talk to somebody. So try to be helpful and point people in the right direction whenever I can.
All right. Well, we really appreciate your time and coming on with us, and I hope we can connect with you again real soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, always great to see you guys.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. All right. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll catch up with you soon, Chris.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Bye,
See ya.
everyone.